For centuries, the Ottoman Empire's strength rested not only on military conquest, but also on its command of trade routes linking east and west. Caravans, ports, and customs houses across Anatolia, the Balkans, and the eastern Mediterranean generated steady revenue for the state. Control of these routes gave the empire economic leverage and strategic importance. Yet as the global economy shifted, this foundation began to erode. New sea trade routes bypassed Ottoman lands, revenues collapsed, debt increased, and foreign powers gradually gained economic control over the empire, reshaping its fate from within. The turning point came with Europe's maritime expansion. Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, and later British sailors opened direct sea routes to Asia and beyond, ending the centuries-old dependence on overland trade through Ottoman-controlled territories. Spices, silk, and other valuable goods now flowed around the empire rather than through it. Customs revenues declined sharply, and cities that once thrived as commercial hubs lost their central role in global trade. This shift did more than reduce income. It weakened the state's bargaining power. The Ottomans had long benefited from taxing trade and regulating the movement of goods. As maritime commerce expanded, European ports and shipping companies gained dominance, while Ottoman merchants struggled to compete. The empire's economy, built around land routes and regional markets, found itself increasingly out of step with a globalizing world. At the same time, Europe's access to New World silver triggered inflation across the Ottoman economy. Prices rose, currency values fluctuated, and the purchasing power of state salaries declined. Soldiers, officials, and artisans demanded higher wages, placing additional strain on the treasury. Traditional tax systems, designed for a stable agrarian economy, proved unable to respond effectively to these pressures. Agriculture, the backbone of Ottoman revenue, also suffered. Prolonged wars disrupted farming, depopulated villages, and damaged infrastructure. Local tax farmers often exploited peasants to maximize short-term profit, accelerating rural decline. As agricultural output fell, so did tax income, deepening the fiscal crisis. To cover growing expenses, the state increasingly relied on short-term solutions. Tax farming expanded, corruption spread, and financial oversight weakened. Rather than investing in long-term development or reform, officials focused on extracting immediate revenue. This approach provided temporary relief but undermined economic stability over time. Foreign pressure intensified the problem. European powers negotiated trade agreements that granted their merchants special privileges, including low tariffs and legal protections. These arrangements, originally intended to encourage commerce, gradually turned into instruments of economic domination. European traders gained advantages over local merchants, draining wealth from the empire and limiting domestic growth. As military defeats mounted in the 18th and 19th centuries, financial dependence deepened. The Ottoman state turned to European banks for loans to fund wars, reforms, and administrative costs. Debt accumulated rapidly, often on unfavorable terms. Interest payments consumed large portions of state revenue, reducing funds available for infrastructure, education, and defense. By the mid-19th century, debt had reached crisis levels. When the empire defaulted, foreign creditors intervened directly in Ottoman finances. New institutions were established to oversee tax collection and ensure repayment, effectively transferring control of key revenue streams to external powers. Economic sovereignty was compromised, and the empire's ability to act independently was severely limited. These developments had far-reaching social consequences. Urban workers faced rising prices and unemployment as local industries struggled against European imports. Traditional crafts declined, and economic inequality widened. In the countryside, peasants bore heavier tax burdens while receiving fewer protections, fueling unrest and migration. Reformers recognized the danger and attempted to modernize the economy. New laws sought to standardize taxation, improve administration, and encourage investment. Infrastructure projects, including railways and ports, aimed to integrate the empire into global trade on more favorable terms. Yet these efforts often relied on foreign capital, further increasing dependence. Foreign influence extended beyond economics into politics and diplomacy. Economic leverage allowed European powers to shape Ottoman decisions, pressure the government, and expand their influence within imperial territories. Financial weakness translated into political vulnerability, eroding the empire's position in international affairs. The economic breakdown also undermined the legitimacy of the state. As living standards declined and inequality grew, public trust weakened. Loyalty to the empire increasingly depended on local or communal ties rather than central authority. Economic hardship fed nationalist movements, further challenging imperial unity. By the late 19th century, the Ottoman Empire had become deeply embedded in a global system it did not control. Once a central hub of world commerce, it now occupied a peripheral position, supplying raw materials and serving foreign interests. Economic decisions made far beyond its borders shaped its internal realities. The story of Ottoman economic decline is not simply one of external exploitation. It reflects the difficulty of adapting long-established systems to a rapidly changing global economy. Delayed reform, reliance on short-term fixes, and resistance to structural change all played a role. Foreign pressure succeeded in part because internal weaknesses made the empire vulnerable. In the end, economic breakdown proved as damaging as military defeat. Loss of revenue, rising debt, and foreign control hollowed out the foundations of imperial power. The Ottoman Empire endured for centuries, but when its economic base collapsed, its ability to resist external pressure and internal fragmentation weakened beyond recovery. The lessons of this decline continue to resonate in a world where economic power remains inseparable from political sovereignty.